Hi, my name is Caroline Poland, and I'm the founder and CEO of Poland and Associates Consulting. Today I'm going to continue with my Window of Tolerance series and talk about what we can do to widen that window of tolerance and bring ourselves down if we're feeling like we are in hyperarousal, or how to bring ourselves up if we are down in hypoarousal. So again, remember that that window of tolerance is just that zone or range in which we can optimally function, that we can face hard things, we can experience hard feelings, and that we're able to regulate in the middle of. So I want to do a quick disclaimer before we go any further to say that I am not speaking to any individual situation, and I would encourage you to reach out and work with a counselor if you would like to widen that window of tolerance, or if you recognize that you are living life a little bit more in hyperarousal or hypoarousal. But today I thought I would just share a couple strategies that you could use to begin to widen that window of tolerance. And these are things, again, that you could use in the workplace, or if you're an educator, that you could use in a classroom or in a Zoom setting that might be helpful. Before we talk specifically about some of those strategies, I want to mention the body scan. And with that, what we want to do is just start at our head and slowly move through our body, doing a quick check to notice what we're feeling and what areas of our body might be feeling tense or tight or hungry or relaxed. Doing the body scan allows us to be present in our bodies and to kind of take stock of what's going on, and we begin to be that curious noticer or observer of our lives in that way. With each of these strategies, I want to remind you that they don't necessarily work right away. So we need to really practice them, in essence, to build that muscle and practice them outside of the moments that we really need them. And by practicing them and building that muscle, we'll be able to really use those things. They'll be able to work for us in the moments when we are feeling anxious or depressed or overcome with shame. So you'll really need to just try a number of things out, be that observer and that experimenter in your life, and see what things feel helpful in what situations. So again, here are some of the characteristics and signs that you are either in hyperarousal or hypoarousal. So when you need to decrease arousal, when that arousal is too high, you're in hyperarousal, there are several things that you can do that involve your body to kind of bring yourself back into that zone. So some of that deep breathing techniques might be helpful. Now, I want to put a disclaimer to that for some of you, you might notice that deep breathing doesn't really feel helpful, or maybe feels a little bit triggering. So if you fall under that category, that's fine. Get curious about that, work with your counselor on that. But we can start, instead of doing the inhale first, we can do the exhale first. So don't think about deep breathing as the inhale, but sigh out. And that will just look like this. And so practice some of those sighs instead. Some of the body-based movements might feel really helpful. So you could do a wall sit with your hands like this in front of you or on your knees, or you could kind of go up at an angle against a wall and push into that wall and really notice your feet on the ground. Push every single finger into that wall, roll your shoulders back. Just be present in your body and very focused on those body-based movements. And things like that might be helpful to bring that arousal down a little. You can also use sensory grounding, and I did a specific video on this and putting together a grounding kit that might be a proactive way of planning for those moments when you will get outside of your window of tolerance, because each of us, no matter how wide that window is, will get out of our window of tolerance from time to time, and I will link that below. But using sensory grounding and noticing our senses, looking around, what do I notice in this room? What do I taste? What do I smell? Things like that, which I go into more in that video, might be really helpful. Another strategy that we can use is something called bilateral stimulation. So if you've watched my videos on the corpus callosum, and I will link those below as well, you know that movement between the right and the left hemisphere is very important, and it allows us not only to take in information, but know how to deal with that information, know what to do with information that we're receiving. And sometimes that piece alone is what can get us into hyperarousal or hypoarousal. So using something like bilateral stimulation allows for the movement between the two hemispheres to smooth out a little bit, as well as to just regulate our nervous system. So here's a simple way of doing that. Take your hands up right into that middle of your body, and this is called the ladybug hug. This is from EMDR, which is a type of trauma therapy. And we're just going to do a slow tap back and forth. So you don't want to go quickly. You want it firm, whatever feels comfortable to you, and just a slow tap. And I love this one because you can use this in a meeting. You could use this if you are anxious in a test where your mind has just kind of turned off in a test, or right before a public speaking event, or if you just need to take a moment before you have a hard conversation with your child. This is a really helpful way. You can also jump side to side if you have a child. That's kind of a fun way to do bilateral stimulation in that regard. You could also do the butterfly hug. So just take this, link your thumbs together, and then find that little indentation right below your collarbones, and a nice tap like this. So obviously you're not going to probably use this in a meeting or in the middle of a test. This can be really helpful if you're struggling to fall asleep, or just as you're going about your house. So again, you'll have to try those out and see what works for you in that regard, but those are all great strategies if you are in hyperarousal, feeling anxious, overwhelmed, angry, irritable. Those are great strategies that you can use for that. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Poland and Associates, and my website polandandassociates.com, and make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss out on future videos.